Ladies and gentlemen, let's Gaming video. We're going to be going through a recent interview that we've conducted with Bitdefender. Now, during this interview, they're going to be going through their insights and thoughts on virus protection, security, protecting your online identity over a myriad of different devices. They are one of the leading antivirus companies, so they do know what they're talking about. Now, this interview is extremely long, and simply because of time constraints, I couldn't put all of it in a video, because I'll be here all day reading it out to you. So it is also an article. Also, during that article, there is a competition, and you stand a very good chance to win it, because there are 5 versions of their total security software up for grabs. And the way to enter the competition is really simple. All you're going to have to do is follow the rules, but it's pretty much just share the article. Very simple stuff. Nothing requiring a sign up or anything nasty like that. Very simple. So anyway, some of these questions are going to be newbie friendly, and then we're going to move on to the more complicated things. And as I said, I'm going to be cherry picking some answers, because some of the responses from the senior threat analyst over at Bitdefender, his name is Bob. They are very comprehensive, and I don't think I'll be finished this side of Christmas if I'm reading out all of it. So, as I said, the whole interview is available on the website, along with the competition, which is running for 3 weeks from the posting of this video. So anyway, let us begin. So I ask a fairly simple question to begin with. Could you explain what are the differences between a virus, spyware, Trojan, and a worm? Pretty simple question, but anyway, let's begin simply. So Bitdefender respond, traditionally malware was split into 4 main categories, depending on how they behave on a computer. For example, a virus, known as a file infector, would have malicious code that specializes in infecting other files in the machine. It's only category of malware that interferes with other files. Spyware specializes in harvesting specific user information. It is extremely hard to remove and often used to hijack advertising or affiliate sales. Trojans are the most familiars of Trojans are the most generic families of malware. They impersonate a legitimate program, for example a codec, and a worm can propagate itself from one computer to another. Worms often use vulnerabilities in the operating system to jump from one machine to another, or, more often, from one USB drive to a computer. Modern malware, however, is not that easy to identify or classify. For example, modern Trojans also have a viral or worm-like behavior, and almost all of them collect information that is particular to spyware. Then I ask, well, okay, how have Bitdefender tried to, solve this problem? They respond that antivirus industry is a cat and mouse game. Cyber criminals often build their malware in such a way to make detection impossible or extremely difficult, which forces antivirus companies to add extra layers of technology to counter a new piece of malware. For example, they point out that the latest technologies they have with Bitdefender are AVC, which is a subsystem that monitors applications and basically assigns them hazard points. And they've also got a cloud type of system which allows them to immediately make available malware signatures and malicious patterns across all customers, as well as Photon, which is a technology that makes the antivirus only scan applications that need scanning. Now, out of quote for a second, I'm sure you remember back when Windows XP was basically becoming EOL, end of line, much was made of UAC. So I ask, well, has the introduction of user account control along with the other security measures in Windows, modern Windows, helped malicious applications from embedding themselves? And Bitdefender reply, yeah, initially. There was a huge gap between Windows XP and Vista, where some malware just stopped working altogether. Vista brought significant innovations security-wise, such as restrictions on which locations and registry keys can be written to, address space, layout randomizations, the introduction of UAC, and so on. Vista was also the first 64-bit Windows distribution aimed at the mass adoption. All of these crippled the existing malware, also some commercial applications to an extent, as threats found themselves unable to properly copy themselves into system directories or set themselves to automatically start and boot. However, there were cyber criminals who managed to find the way around that and have now updated their attacks to modern operating systems, and new malware runs just as well on Windows 7 or 8, for example, as it would run on Windows XP. Then I ask, because I'm sure many of you are probably curious about this, how difficult is the detection of new viruses and trojans, particularly when they're new released and your team is learning how it works and operates and progresses? And Bitdefender respond, the number of malicious pieces we see every day is huge, but most of these individual samples are repackaged, morph versions of known common malware that poses no problems to identification and remediation. Once in a while, however, we see pieces that are written extremely differently, and they are usually a brainchild of a very determined actor, be it an organization, a state, or a private contractor. These incidents are rare and they don't really target mainstream customers, which is exactly why they stay undiscovered for so long. Let me try to explain this a little bit better. An antivirus is a combination of a layered technology that assesses the security status of a code via different approaches. Most antiviruses have an unpacker to separate viral code from the shell that attempts to fool the signatures check, a heuristics engine, and last, and most importantly, a behavior-based malware detection. Whenever suspicious behavior is detected, the file is isolated and a fingerprint of that file is sent to the labs. However, by only targeting an organization, the number of record incidents is minimal, so the chance of a file being reported and manually dissected by a human analyst decreases considerably. As to the original question, we don't manually look into each and every one to understand the workings of the virus, because there are hundreds of thousands of viruses every day, and we only have a limited number of analysts. Having them spend a couple of hours each virus would be a waste. Most viruses are extremely common and can easily be processed by our automated systems. These systems churn samples and output signatures, heuristics, and some set of rules, and of course disinfection. The malware analyst in the lab can then focus into looking really special cases of malware for forensics, documentation, or education. So what about if you don't run Windows? So I asked a lot of your computer users, particularly those with Linux or Mac, operate completely and utterly without AV solutions. You know, they believe that careful while downloading, and so on. To be fair, I actually know people like this in real life. I'm sure you do as well. I know quite a few Mac users who do not use antivirus applications. Then again, I also know Windows users who do not use AVs as well. They believe that basically they're following fairly safe procedures and so they should be fine. But the Bitdefender say there are common misconceptions among non-Windows users that operating systems are immune to viruses. This is particularly partial immunity is caused by the fact that most cybercriminals often go for the biggest pool of victims. And since Windows is the dominant OS for desktops, these are the cyber crooks' favourite. There are massive incidents, however, affecting all popular platforms. Last year, the flashback virus infected more than 450,000 Mac OSs in just a single day and should have taught a tough lesson for OS X users. Linux has its share of vulnerabilities that could allow someone to escalate their privileges on that respective computer and compromise it, but its desktop market share is under 2%, so it's irrelevant to crooks. As a general rule, the more users an OS has, the more potential for cybercrime. Okay, so now likely you're getting a bit paranoid. So what can you do? What would you advise, I asked Bitdefender, the average computer user to do to remain safe? You know, is a good AV solution okay, along with a web browser and OS? And they respond, most attacks nowadays are fully automated and require automated defense mechanisms to block them. System updates, third-party software patches, and state-of-the-art anti-malware solution would definitely help a user fend off threats, but nothing to substitute its common sense. No AV solution can stop the user from disclosing private information on a social media site or disable the AV to still visit that page that has been blocked. And if you're a computer user that's got some experience, this is out of quote, if you're a computer user that's got a bit of experience, you're most likely nodding along thinking of a friend that's done just that while they've been searching for interesting material, let's just say that. Anyway, what about DDoS, I ask, well, what's the basic overview of how a DDoS attack works? And Bitdefender respond, DDoS stands for Distributed Denial of Service, a type of attack in which computers try to simultaneously connect to a specific server or infrastructure. Since the infrastructure may not have been designed to withstand that much traffic, it crashes under load and is rendered inaccessible for everyone. Multiple types of DDoS attacks make use of various tricks on top of the server's connection handling capacities, but at the end the result is simply the same. The server becomes unstable, which results in operational loss. I now ask them, would you provide us a little day in the life of Bitdefender? What are some of the strategies your team use and so on? There are more than 220 million unique samples of malware today. Just out of quote, my goodness, 220 million, that's a lot. Anyway, 220 million unique samples of malware today. I have to admit, I did read that figure twice to myself, because like, maybe I'm misreading that. 220 million unique samples of malware today. And the number of new infections is quickly increasing as more and more cybercriminals resort to polymorphism to flood antivirus companies with samples that may not be able to detect. The surge in malware has also prompted us to heavily rely on automated systems that perform analysis and detection, as there's no way for a limited number of analysts to deal with this many viruses. What human analysts do is create technologies that can accurately cluster various malware samples into families and extract their common features, as well as develop machine learning algorithms to proactively protect against new samples. Okay, so what about the difference between a traditional desktop and a server? So, in other words, if you're someone who isn't too familiar with the two roles or the security difference between them, how does that work? Well, web servers are usually always on and available for everyone to connect and probe. At the same time, they're also very specialized systems that run 2 or 3 services that only run a handful of ports for connectivity. Proper configuration and hardening somewhat alleviates the risk, but the complex ecosystem of server-side applications can still be breached. For example, by using SQL injection techniques and used by criminals to compromise the web server and its contents. These servers are designed to be always up, so system administrators postpone the installation of security updates in order not to reboot the server and take it out of production. The main difference between web servers and workstations is the latter is much larger attack surface. Many other third-party applications running in the background, as well as end-user actions, could put the machine in danger. Dedicated web servers are not used by humans to surf the web. End quote. So, this is actually really true. I'm actually an IT administrator in my normal job, by the way, and you do get a lot of requests. Now, generally, some of the updates can be pretty large, and so you have to generally schedule in maintenance. And it's also the reason that a lot of larger sites, and even over at GamingTech.com, I actually go with a fully managed company, because what they do is operate on cloud-based solutions, and generally speaking, their updates are rolled out at a ridiculously fast pace, which does help to reduce the chances of, well, any issues. Okay, what about Windows XP? I'm sure you know people, or your company, or a friend or a relative that is still using Windows XP. So what can you do about it? What steps do they recommend to take to make sure that it remains fairly secure? Can you just go with an updated web browser, AV, or is it not going to be so much with the good? And Bitdefender respond, use an antivirus solution, update all third-party applications, particularly the web browser, Java, Flash, and Adobe Reader. By the way, guys, out of topic for a second, it's very important to keep Adobe Reader and also be a bit careful with things such as Word, Excel, and anything else that can potentially contain macros, because they could be very, very nasty. But anyway, moving back to Bitdefender, this is not enough to ensure your system will stay safe, but it will at least make the exploitations more difficult and buy users more time until they decide to migrate to a supported version of Windows. However, full migration to a supported operating system is highly recommended. What about false positives? They are kind of a pain in the butt. And I ask them, well, false positives are an issue with many AV applications, and with Bitdefender themselves, there were reports with users, I personally experienced this, might I add, where Steam, along with other titles, were actually being falsely classified as, well, a virus. So what have Bitdefender done to stop this, and what can other AV companies do? Well, Bitdefender responds, false positives occur when malware signatures has a pattern that's in common with a legitimate application. This issue has impacted all antivirus vendors at least once, but ever since the introduction of cloud-based verifications, we can accurately tell malware from legit files. To detect potential false positives, we've also established a quality assurance process that identifies potentially problematic signatures before they are delivered to our users. If the signature matches a known clean file, it is forwarded to a human analyst or an additional verification. What about mobile? I'm sure a lot of you are even watching this particular video with mobile, maybe a tablet or phone, whatever. So what can you do to defend your data with a mobile? Let's face it, everyone has a ridiculous amount of information, whether it's your schedule, whether it's your name, whether it's your house address, whatever. You've got most likely a lot of data here. So Bitdefender said that one of the main problems with mobiles nowadays is the way data is sent from applications server. There's some ad monetized applications often leads to personal information that is sent out via unsecure HTTP. Since smartphones often connect via public Wi-Fi, this is the larger problem, and the applications leave room for a man-in-the-middle or Wi-Fi snooping attacks. The two most important pieces of advice any user should follow would be to use 3G whenever possible, and only connect to Wi-Fi networks you trust, and B, use a VPN solution when connected to untrusted Wi-Fi networks. There are plenty of free VPN services that the user can choose from. Oh, and a little piece of advice from myself outside of Bitdefender. Also, be a little bit careful if you've got a rooted phone. Rooting your Android device, for example, is cool and everything, and it can lead to some awesomeness, but just be really careful of the APKs that you can download, especially the non-official ones from, not from Google themselves, because there could be some really dodgy stuff in there, and just keep it in mind. Okay, so that's about, well, that's a pretty good size portion of the interview. As I said, if you do want the full thing, then you can check out the article. There is a competition that will be running from today until 3 weeks. So you've got 3 weeks to enter the competition to win one of 5 total security packages from Bitdefender, and you shall have happy fun times. Obviously it's full versions and all of that good stuff. So anyway, hopefully you shall enjoy the video, or have enjoyed the video. I'll see you soon. Take care. Bye for now.